at the spinal cord, and I've asked you to already draw it, but to help you along, I've already started drawing it from the basic part. And when I know it's a little bit not in proportion because you can see this side is bigger and this side is smaller, but just to show you how to draw it, I want you to remember that when we speak about gray matter is with all the cell bodies in, while white matter has all the axons. To understand that, the cell body has cytoplasm inside it. The cytoplasm in a neuron is called neuroplasm, and the neuroplasm is gray in color. Therefore, it's called gray matter. While the axons have myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is a fatty layer, and the fatty layer, you know, when fat is cold, is white. Therefore, the white matter is all the axons. All right, so you've drawn that. Let's move on to the next as we're adding on. Now, I've drawn the second part. Can you see this part? I've drawn this in. So now, you've got that, you add in this. Notice that I put a circle in the middle. That's your central canal. That has cerebrospinal fluid. Its main function is shock absorber. Exactly like the brain. And the spinal cord is protected by three membranes together known as the meninges, and its function is also protection. And remember that it also has cerebrospinal fluid. Just like how we've done in the brain. So look at the brain. Same thing. The meninges, we've got the central canal with cerebrospinal fluid, and we have also got the vertebral column around it. So you have like bone tissue right around it called the vertebral column. I'm just drawing some vertebrae. I know it's horrible, my drawing. So you also got the vertebral column there. Let's move on. All right, good people. Notice that the gray matter forms an H in the spinal cord. It's in the shape of an H. So that's your gray matter. While the white matter is around it, and you can see I've done it as a bigger portion, the central canal. Here's our protective functions. Let's move on. Now I've added on. Let's look. We know now that this is your gray matter. This is your white matter, your central canal. I've left out the meninges now and vertebral column because I've already done it with you. And now we're going to add in other parts of the spinal cord. You're looking at the spinal nerve. The top part of the spinal cord is called the dorsal. So I'm going to put that in, then you remember. I use a different color for you, good people, smart people, brilliant. Top and the bottom is called the ventral part. So watch. You have this part here. This nerve that's going up from the spinal nerve that's splitting into two parts. The top part is called the dorsal root. Dorsal meaning top. The bottom part is called ventral root. Ventral meaning at the bottom. So the top part is called the dorsal root, and inside the dorsal root you have a sensory neuron. So I'm going to write here that that part, dorsal root, contains the sensory neuron. And you know that the sensory neuron is unipolar, and therefore you can see that this is the cell body of the sensory neuron. You can see it unipolar. Where the cell body is formed in the sensory neuron, we find that it becomes swollen, the dorsal root, and therefore that swollen part is called the dorsal root ganglion or ganglion. So the dorsal root is coming up from the top. It contains this sensory neuron. This is the cell body of the sensory neuron. It becomes a swollen part in the dorsal root. It is called the dorsal root ganglion or ganglion. Think a lion is big. And that then continues into the dorsal part, into the gray matter of the spinal cord. Let us look at the ventral part. The ventral neuron, the ventral root, has the motor neuron. So the motor neuron comes, it branches out, and it also goes into the gray matter of the spinal cord. So the top part, the dorsal part, has the sensory neuron. The ventral root has the motor neuron. And there you see them. There is the motor end plates of the sensory neuron, and there is the motor end plates of the motor neuron. Now in the gray matter, there is what we call a connector neuron, or we said interneuron. So you can use either word. And like I explained to you, I will redo it again and drill you again, my darlings. The interneuron is found in between sensory and motor. So the interneuron is connecting those two. So you have one synapse here and one synapse there. So here comes the sensory neuron into the dorsal root ganglion into the gray matter, makes a synapse there. Connector neuron makes another synapse. And there you get your dendrites of your motor neuron forming your ventral root to the spinal cord. This is the structure of the spinal cord. Please take down this as an annotated diagram. Functions of the spinal cord: it conducts impulses to the brain and sense organs and muscles, and it's also communication between all of that to the brain. And it has reflex centers: blinking, sneezing, knee jerk. On your terminology page that we already started with the central nervous system part, you enter receptors are sense organs, example, your skin, your eye, your ears. Effectors are your muscles. Voluntary, under the control of the will, example, study. You have the voluntary, you have the power to study. Involuntary, you cannot control it, example, digestion. Swallowing. Reflex action, something that's fast, it's automatic. The main function is protection. You know if someone is coming to you with a knife, you run. Or if someone throws a pen at you, you blink. That's a reflex action. And a reflex arc, which is our next lesson, is a pathway chosen by an impulse from the receptor, your sense organ, to the effector. Effector is end, your muscles. We move on. So let's start with a reflex arc now. Possible examination question, guys. There's no way that you're not going to get something like this. As sure as you can hear my voice, so sure are you that I'm sure that you're going to get a question on reflex arc. So let's look there. Look, I've pegged it, possible examination question. And let's look at it. What is a reflex arc? It is a pathway chosen by an impulse to bring about a response from the receptor to the effector. Turn to page 112, 114 in your textbook, and you have an activity. Very important. Now, not to get mixed up between a reflex arc and a reflex action. A reflex action, think about when someone is throwing something at you, an eraser, or you've asked for Prit or for scissor. That is your reflexes, you're fast. And you know, they say, hey, your reflexes are fast. It's how long you take to do something. But a reflex arc, think about Noah's Ark. It took him very, very long to make this ark. Therefore, think about a reflex arc. It's a very long path. It's not like a reflex action. And remember, it's happening quite fast. Let's look at it. This is your reflex arc. It starts with your sensory neuron, which is found in your receptor. So that's your receptor. We took the skin. Sensory neuron goes through the dorsal root. So number one is your dorsal root. Number two, the cell body of your sensory neuron. It goes, can you see it showing you an arrow? The pathway into the gray matter of the spinal cord. Synaptic contact. A neurotransmitter is released, so it jumps over the interneuron. So number three is your interneuron. Jumps over here, two synapses onto the motor neuron, going out through the dendrites or through the axon of the motor neuron, and eventually the motor end plates or terminal branches end into the muscle. So let us label. Number one will be your dorsal root. You're going to label it yourself. I'm just giving you clues. Two, cell body of what? Three, which neuron is that? Four, what's that hole called? Five, what neuron is this? The axon of which neuron? Six, what is this? Starts with an M. where the reaction will take place. And this, you can see it's white in color, white matter, gray matter, which is shaped like an H. Let's move on. I am so proud of you. Let us move on, my beautiful people. Let's look at this diagram. Gray matter, white matter. Can you see I've done all of that for you? Muscle, your effector, your sense organ, your sensory neuron. Your skin is your receptor. Let's move on again. Let's move back a little bit. Look at this neuron. Showing you also gray matter, white matter. The pin is the receptor. And I would say that you're okay with it now. Let us recap. Spinal cord, gray matter in the form of an H, white matter around it, central canal, protected by vertebrae, meninges, cerebral by spinal fluid, shock absorber. We now have the top part called dorsal root ganglion, made up of the sensory neuron, which is the cell body of sensory neuron, into gray matter. Interneuron, space here, space there, 2 synapses only. Motor neuron going up into the ventral root. We go through a reflex arc. Functions you can do yourself. Reflex arc is a long pathway. It's the pathway of the impulse from the time it's received from your sensory organs till it goes to wherever it's supposed to go. Come back to the muscle. So 6 is your muscle, and this is what it looks like. Your exam will give you something like a pin showing you on the skin, or it will show you maybe fire or candle or something on the foot, poking the foot, and that will be your receptor. This is called your sensory neuron in the dorsal root, dorsal root ganglion, interneuron, motor neuron, muscle, bringing about the reaction, cerebral spinal fluid, and the same thing again. Thank you, people. Enjoy the lesson. Please study this. I'm going to post questions for you in WhatsApp form later. I love you. Make me prouder. Bye-bye.